Okay, guys. So we're gonna start the podcast of today. It's gonna be episode number 53. Can music help you study and focus? Just hold on to me. Hold on a couple seconds. My name is Pablo J. Ruiz. I'm the host of the P Alpha Music Podcast. You know you can find me in the Google Radio, iHeartRadio, any of your favorite podcast distribution and music distribution, even in Spotify and Apple Music. Make sure you like and share the content. That's very important. And not only that, just make sure you're engaged in some questions in the comments in the social media such as Facebook and YouTube. All right. So I'm going to just go straight in. No more, fluffy around. So episode number 53. Can music help you study and focus? Okay, let me just dig in. Again, I want to make it sure I give like a disclaimer. I'm not a professional, right? I'm just a guy that's just talking by his own experience, right? If you want to go more into whether this is true or not, go ahead. I don't have time for that. I'm going just to talk in my own experience. Also, you want to follow the article or the blog post, you can go to the description down below and you can click it and read it, all right? Okay, episode number 53. Can music help you study and focus? Interesting enough, my girlfriend and I love to read at least 1 hour a day. While I read, my meticulous musician brain wants to play some Johann Sebastian Bach preludes or some Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart sonatas. You know, I'm a classical musician. I love to listen to classical music. I want to make sure that because for some reason I can center myself reading into my reading state and be able to focus on my reading with eloquence. But for some reason my girlfriend, on the other hand, cannot focus on her reading. Which I have to make a disclaimer, she's getting better at it. She couldn't just focus while the music was playing in the background. She wasn't unable to keep herself from following her read. The music seems to take over for her instead of multitasking. So you can say there are various things that can affect this mixture. In my case, most of the time I need soft music in the background. It keeps me calm and centered in the mood, and most importantly, focused. I notice that my brain needs these type of things, such as music, to get into the deep state. For example, I need an AC or fan to sleep. I need music to read. The sound of the wind, the beaches are my favorite. The sound of blizzard, all the stuff. Now, I noticed that I have not mentioned headphone into the mixture at all. I personally do not use them because I do get out of focus. Interesting thing. I usually use my headphones for podcasts, documentary, politics debates, and courses. So there's an associate every time that I put my headphones in my ear. Therefore, focusing while listening to music is more likely not obtainable. And this is on my case. I wanted to put that reference. It's on my case. I'm not saying you can't do it. But on my case, On my case, I associate headphones with other things. Like I said, politics, courses, documentary. So already having my headphones in my ear, I always have that reference to where do I need to just direct or redirect my focus or my center of attention. Okay. There are some great studies on this topic that really go into this, and you can check that in the link down. And this is one of the quotes that I took from the article. While the so-called Mozart effect, which is a term coined from a study that suggests listening to music actually intelligence, has been widely refuted, there are still many definitions of listening to music while studying. Interesting, right? But there are some dark sides to this equation. Like my partner, music can create some distraction while doing some other chore that requires complete focus. And here are some examples. Listening to music with lyrics will cause you to perform less efficiently on your tasks that are related to writing or reading, since your brain has to work twice as hard to maintain one line of information. Okay. And you can make the argument whether singers are used to do this thing. You know, they can hear music in the background that has lyrics, you know, all sorts of things in the background, and they can still keep their focus. But at the same time, because there's some other skills required to get that information to your brain, such as lyric and sounds, right? So, instruments and stuff like that. Your center of focus is going to be more inclined to the music which you're reading, right? Because you not only now listen to music, but you're listening to lyrics. So that means you need another type of how can I describe this? Let me put it in more simple context. Recitating, right? So when you're listening to music lyrics, your mind starts recitating. So now you're taking that focus out of the line, okay? The next one is loud and aggressive music, which is going to distort comprehension and emotional mood, making focus very impossible. And this is, I used to do this a lot. I remember when I was doing my master's degree, I would just put metal music on. I would put a lot of thrash metal, Suffocation, Creator. You guys, those that are part of the metal music community, you guys understand. It's a lot of loud music, and yes, I never encountered myself being very focused because I was listening to that kind of music. It's very loud. There's a lot of things going on, and not only that, it's always pounding. So in my experience, I very lacked in a lot of focus while listening to the kind of music. Next one is people that study or memorize things while listening to music, which is going to have a hard time repeating or recitating materials already associated with the activity related to it. And let me give you an explanation with this. If you're trying to memorize something, and you're trying to memorize long sentences and a lot of material, music, and this is from a musician, music will interfere with memorization patterns. Why? Because you're going to start associating sentences and words with whatever your music was related at the time, right? So you're gonna find out if you study for a test, right? And you were putting a lot of music, and let's say a music that has lyrics. While memorizing a test, you're gonna relate that test with the music. So when the test come, you're not gonna have that music in the background. Therefore, your association is gonna be spread. You following? So that means that you memorizing a test sentences or material is going to be associated with the music that you already were playing. But guess what? You cannot bring headphones in the test. You cannot play music in the test. Therefore, your association is going to be off. Okay. Personally, when I'm studying, I do have some music in the background, but it's instrumental. And like I said, like piano, mostly Bach and Mozart, because they're very subtle. They're not aggressive music. I would not put symphonies. Symphonies tend to really distract me because for some reason I tend to engage more emotionally, right? If I listen to let's say a Mendelssohn symphony, I would tend to get more emotional. Brahms or Mahler's symphony, I tend to get more emotionally engaged because they're very dense and very emotional type of genre, right? We're talking about 19th century, late 19th century music. Okay, let's keep going here. Okay, Again, I want to state a disclaimer of the topic. I'm not a professional or claim to be. I like my soft music in the background, like I said, and these are things that I do, right? And sometimes, I like to listen to Megadeth, AC/DC, Electro Lavoe, and all that while I'm cleaning my house or performing more physical activities. Can music help you study and focus? In this case, yes, it does. For some people, it doesn't. Okay. If you want to look more about my personal little article or blog, it's going to be right in the description. You guys can click it and just go into it with more details. Now, music is, you don't want to multitask in a lot of things, right? You don't want to just deviate your focus in a lot of different tasks. We cannot do two things at the same time. We can deviate or focus in multiple tasks, but we cannot do the two things at the same time. That's a lie. Our brain doesn't work that way. Even when I'm a pianist, right? When I play piano, I'm not doing two things at the same time. I just train my brain to direct the information to certain movement that are being required, right? That's why they say practice slowly, all that stuff. That way, when you send information through your brain to your executions, that information is directed, okay? And all forms of alternations through your fingers have a different type of information, but it doesn't mean that I'm doing two things at the same time with my brain. I've just learned to send information at once through each movement that's required to play such instrument. Okay. Now, can you try to put a zero gravity to quote unquote do those things at the same time? You can, right? But it's not that you can do two things at the same time. Okay. Again, you can. How can I put this? You can train yourself to do two things at the same time, but it's not that you're doing it because you're multitasking. Okay. It's just that you train your brain to redirect your energy to the things that you need to focus at the same time. Okay. Which is not doing two things at the same time, because the brain doesn't work like that. It doesn't have the power to do that. Okay. It's always sending information directly. Yeah. Not in the multiple directions. It's just one direction. Okay. Now, why is that a thing, right? Why people say, it's like doing two things at the same time? No, it's not that. It's that you manage to train yourself to, redirect your brain. That way you can just do a lot of things at the same time. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be a time where that information is so registered, you don't have to think about those things. So it's like a multiple level of layers, right? So first, let's say doing certain things with your hands, right? Like one hand's just doing one circle, one side, the other one, the other side. You say, oh man, I cannot do it like twice. But then someone comes in and say, oh no, just think about, like, every time you do a circle, they're gonna meet together at the same time. And you say, oh, like this. And all of a sudden, you're not going through the process yourself to redirect that information through each movement, right? So there's a lot of stories about this. I'm not a huge professional in this, but I have an idea. Since I play an instrument that requires the two sides of the hemisphere. Okay, so my left hand, which is my weakest, right? I tend to, have some problems with it. But of course, my right hand is my strongest, and I tend to have some advantage, but at the same time, some disadvantage. But the way I just fix things is because I managed to redirect my focus to one movement. Okay, to one movement. Then after that movement is masterized, masterizer, yeah, I can just put it in context, right? So I went to a couple layers, right, and managed to put it in a more complete context. Yeah, there's gonna be times where one thing was very hard, and the other, in the more you practice, the more your brain get better by identifying that movement, right? Now, in my case, I managed to practice scales and stuff like that while I listen to all that stuff, and I managed to have a very content focus. Not 100%. I have to be very honest with myself. It's not 100%, but I managed to at least get the basic. For example, scales, arpeggios, techniques, and stuff like that. Because it tends to be very boring, I tend to still go to the process of getting to my techniques, right? It's sometimes interesting enough when I'm listening to documentary, politics, or anything while I practice of reading an audiobook. I can feel, I'm not focusing on the sound at that time, but I can feel my tip of my fingers. I like that. I like to focus on my tip of my fingers. I like to feel the piano, right? And sometimes I notice I cannot get to that concentration without putting headphones in my ear. When I have my headphones out, I'm focusing more on the sound that I'm producing while I'm playing the instrument, but not focusing on my tip of my fingers. Yeah. But of course, these are lines and layers that you have to go through. By sometimes you have to hack your mind to do weird stuff to just get to the next step. You know, sometimes if you want to, for example, you're doing exercise, and let's say you have to do 100 squat, which I'm doing currently like 5 times a week, 6 to 5 times a week. Sometimes I cannot do my squats without listening to something in my ear, because my brain start, to play weird games with my mind. So therefore, I had to just put my headphones and just focusing in my mind and not in my pain muscle. Okay, so those are small things that works like that. But again, not everyone can do that. Again, like I was saying, my girlfriend, she cannot focus herself as strong as me since I've been doing this longer. Okay, of course she's getting better because of the repetition, but that doesn't mean that she's equally affected as me because I've been doing it longer. Okay, and of course I'm a musician. A lot of things I don't have to pay attention, but in her case, she's not used to that, so therefore it's going to be a little bit harder. And if you want to experiment on that, I would just suggest to just always go with soft music if you want to study and stuff like that, because it doesn't really disturb you as much as a little bit more aggressive kind of music. I would just suggest, of course, in my case, classical music or jazz, or just do it. You put some Bill Evans, or some Johann Sebastian Bach kind of preludes and fugue. Even for me, I can only play preludes but not fugues with Bach. Bach tends to just really drive me to a weird rabbit hole kind of place, and I'm just thinking about the voices. Hey, here's the subject. Here's the thing. I just go to that down rabbit hole kind of thing. But I like to put more in preludes instead of the fugues, because I love fugues. As a composer, I'm a fanatic of fugues. So I try to only play fugues. Preludes and sonatas. Sonatas, of course, not Beethoven, but Mozart. I like Mozart or John Field, which are very subtle. They're not as aggressive. Okay, folks. So this was episode number 53 of the PO Alpha Music. Can music help you study and focus? Of course. In my case, yes, and sometimes not. It all depends on the individual. Remember, you can just share our content, and you can listen to the P Alpha Music podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Radio, all those nice platforms where you can just listen to all your favorite podcasts, or even Spotify. Don't forget that. All right, like the content, share the content. We're gonna appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Bye.